Thank you all for coming out today, on this beautiful fall day. We won't take up too much of your time. We'll keep it short and sweet. So my name is Rachel Senecal. I'm the coordinator of the Elder and Persons with Disabilities Abuse Unit. It's a mouthful, at the Northwestern District Attorney's Office. This is Anita Wilson. She is a consumer advocate and our consumer protection unit. So I'll talk about my unit briefly, and then I'll let Anita talk a little bit about hers. So we both work for the District Attorney's Office, and the primary function of our office is to do two things: to prosecute criminals and to prevent crimes. Two things. That's it. So we do that in several different ways. We have lots of different units. We have a domestic violence unit that handles cases of domestic violence. We have a juvenile justice unit that handles the prosecution of young people who commit crimes. We have our consumer protection unit, and we have an elder and persons with disabilities abuse unit. So the unit is very small. It's just myself and the chief prosecutor. Her name is Jamie Parent. And we are both specially trained to handle cases in which seniors and folks with disabilities have been victimized. There's a lot that goes on when a report is made of that nature. So we take a multidisciplinary team approach. So we work very closely with elder services. So in this town, it would be Highland Valley Elder Services. We work very closely with Department of Mental Health, Department of Developmental Services, the Mass Rehab Commission, and we work very closely with all these agencies when a report comes in. What else do I have to say? We also have victim witness advocates who work through our office, who work with our unit with folks who are seniors or who have a disability. A big part of my job is also education and outreach. So going out to senior centers and talking with you lovely folks about what we're seeing in the office. You know, what kinds of crimes are we seeing be committed against seniors, and how can we prevent them? So that's why I'm very happy that you ladies all came out to hear us talk today, because I hardly think this is the entire senior population of Hadley. I could be wrong. I know Hadley's a small town, but something's telling me this may not be it. So you ladies are going to leave here with some valuable information that we would like you to share as best that you can. Another part of my job is I'm the triad liaison for the office. We have a lovely member of our triad group here today. Triad, if you don't know, is a community policing initiative where myself, the police department, the fire department, the council on aging, and seniors in the community sit down about once a month or so, and we talk about the safety issues that seniors are having in the community. How can we address those issues directly? How can we benefit from hearing from seniors about their safety concerns? So that's actually my favorite part of the job. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. So I'm going to go first. I'm going to talk a little bit about my unit and sort of what's going on as far as criminal, and then Anita here will take the reins as far as some scams and fraud. I know all of you are sick of getting those awful phone calls at all hours of the day. I mean, it's just rampant. It really is. So she's your scam girl. So I'm going to cover some other things. So first, what I want to do is I want to see where you're at. So I'm going to ask you a trivia question. So what are the odds? What do you think the odds are that a senior in the United States will fall victim to some sort of abuse? Would you say it's 1 in 50? Would you say it's 1 in 100? 1 in 1,000? What do you think?
1 in 10.
1 in 10?
2 in 10.
2 in 10. Not bad.
9 in 10.
All right, I like the way you're going, because as funny as those statistics sound, it's 1 in 10.
1 in 10.
1 in 10 seniors will fall victim to some form of abuse. Now that's sort of the whole blanket. You know, that's all the abuse. So your financial abuse, your physical abuse, your neglect, self-neglect is actually included in that. Self-neglect is a big problem in the senior community. My office, unfortunately, does not handle cases of self-neglect for obvious reasons. We cannot punish someone for not taking care of themselves, but it's a big problem that we see in the senior community. Let's see, so many clicks. All right, so this is obviously easier when we have it, you know, nicely shown, but I'm gonna tell it to you anyway. So let me define some things for you. So what do we mean when I say elder? So an elder, as defined by the statute, is an individual who's age 60 or above. 60 is not old. That's just the way the statute is written. And folks over the age of 60 just have more protections under the law, which is a good thing. So, and when I say abuse, what do I mean when I say abuse? So abuse is defined as an act or omission which results in serious physical or emotional injury to an elderly person or financial exploitation of an elderly person. So that's sort of the legal term, legal abuse. So we like to break it up into categories with our office. So we have physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial, neglect, and emotional abuse. So of all those 5, financial, by far, is the most prominent form of abuse that we see in our office. We get reports of financial exploitation all the time. So that's really what I'm going to focus on, just for, so I could sit here and talk to you for hours and hours, but I don't want to do that because I want to get you back outside in this beautiful weather. So I'm going to focus on financial. Okay. Why did I put so many clicks in here? All right. So I'm going to give you some more legal terms, because that's what we do at the DA's office. We're nice and confusing. So financial exploitation, what is it? So it's an act or an omission by another person which causes a substantial monetary or property loss to an elderly person, or causes a substantial monetary or property gain to the other person which would otherwise benefit the senior. So that's, again, nice and legal mumbo jumbo. So what does that mean? What are we talking about? So of course the fraud and scams, those awful phone calls, those awful letters, those emails that are a little fishy, that's all identity theft. That's all lumped into that. So theft of cash, that's the pretty basic one. Theft of cash, theft of property, theft of debit or credit cards, unauthorized use of debit cards or credit cards, unauthorized withdrawals from bank accounts, use of deception or undue influence in order to obtain funds. So if someone lies to you in order to get money and they're using it for something different, that's a crime. Larceny by false pretense. We see that one quite a bit. Writing false checks. We see that one quite frequently, or altering checks to make adding another 0 on, or a couple numbers in there. Also exploitation by a fiduciary, such as a power of attorney or a conservator. We see a lot of issues with powers of attorney. I'm not going to go into too much detail because technically that's a civil matter, but we see it cross over into criminal quite a bit. But I have some guides here about powers of attorney that I can give out, so if anyone has any additional questions, that's a good guide. So, excuse me, scratchy throat. So, why are seniors targeted? That's a big question. Why is the senior population targeted for financial crimes? The #1 reason being, seniors have the most assets. You have lifelong savings and you've worked hard, you know, your whole lives and had careers and businesses, and you have a lot to show for it. So seniors have the most in their savings. They also have higher credit scores. So that makes them more attractive targets for identity theft. Also, seniors can sometimes be a more isolated population. We see this scenario quite a bit, especially in Franklin County when it's a more rural area. Perhaps spouses have passed away, adult children have moved out of state. We're seeing children sort of go further and further from home, and a senior is left sort of on their own in a home where your closest neighbor could be miles away. And that isolation leads to sort of low social support and social interaction. So those seniors may not know what's going on as far as scams go, so they're more susceptible to fall for them. And they're also a suitable target for a family member or friend who may be looking to financially exploit them. So seniors are at risk also because a lot of times seniors are financially responsible for another adult. We see that quite a bit. It's a tough economy we live in. I will say that as a younger person trying to make it, it's tough. So a lot of older family members are helping out, you know, the grandsons, the sons, the daughters, nieces. So the more that scenario happens, there's a greater risk for financial exploitation. So someone will take advantage of that kindness. Also, sometimes seniors require assistance with activities of daily living. So your grocery shopping, your laundry, you know, things around the yard work is a big one. So the more dependent a senior is on another to help them throughout their daily life, the risk increases for financial exploitation. And also, some seniors that we see run through our office have a history of past trauma. So losing family members, going through a bereavement process sort of makes someone vulnerable. And also, we see a lot of seniors with substance abuse issues who are victimized, who may not be in their right minds to be making the right decisions. So these risk factors are all sort of prominent in the senior community we see in our office. So when it comes to abusers, who's committing these crimes? What type of people are we prosecuting? And the unfortunate reality is we are prosecuting a lot of family members. Yeah. A lot of family members, a lot of close friends, people that get close to a senior. Because if you think about it, if you're using someone's bank card without their knowledge, if you're using someone's account numbers, you have to get very close to someone in order to get that information. So scammers are sort of in a league of their own, so to speak. So they operate in a different way, but the people that we're prosecuting are our family members. You know, they see sort of an opportunity in the generosity of their elder family members, which is, it's a really unfortunate reality, but it's what we're seeing. So this one particular study I had put in here, they did a study in 2014 of seniors who had been financially abused, and family members were the #1 sort of category of offender, followed by friends and neighbors, and then home care aides. So home care aides is sort of another issue that we're seeing. A lot of folks are aging in place now, which is great. You know, people want to be home. I would want to be home. Everyone wants to be home. But in turn, that's requiring more folks to come into the home to assist. So the more people you kind of have in and out of a home, the greater the chances of financial exploitation. All right. So one thing about elder abuse that is very unfortunate, but it's not hard to see why, it's very underreported. So the reports that we're dealing with are only a small fraction of what really may be going on in our communities. And that's due to many reasons. If you think about what types of people are committing these crimes, family members, it's no wonder why people aren't coming forward and sort of ratting on their family members. Is a lot of people want to deal with their issues in the home, and you know, nobody wants outside agencies coming in and telling them what to do or not do. Also, there's a lot of, sometimes folks can have a fear of retaliation. So if they you know, rat on their son or their niece, you know, what's that going to mean for their future? Oh, well, they're not going to help me out anymore, and then who will help me out after that? So we see a lot of that sort of a barrier. And some seniors may not even realize that they're being financially exploited, especially by family members. You know, it's a lot of these situations start as, oh, I'm just helping, you know, he's going through a rough time, she's just lost her job, we're just, you know, helping her out. And folks can really take advantage of that situation, and it can sort of, they pull the wool over the eyes of the victim, and the victim doesn't even realize what's going on. They still think they're just helping them out, when in fact, you know, it escalates and escalates, and all of a sudden they're taking them to the bank and giving them $300 a day. You know, no one, honestly, I don't know a lot of people that make that much money working, so that can be another factor. And criminal court is just an exhausting process. I mean, we're there every day, and it truly is an exhausting process, especially financial crimes, which have just stacks and stacks of years worth of bank records that are involved. The process can be very, very long, very stressful, very time consuming. So it's really no wonder why this is very underreported. So that is why I'm so happy that you folks came today, because community awareness about elder abuse and sort of the way it works is key. Key to identifying it, reporting it, and prosecuting it if possible to the best extent that we can. So you have a very important job here. So I won't go into too many of these, there's a bunch, but also what we can do, we can email Violet all of these PowerPoints so that she has them available, so if you do want copies, we can certainly get them to you. So some signs of elder abuse and neglect, or financial abuse and neglect. So unexplained missing funds. That's a big one. You know, folks will, a lot of times banks catch on to this type of thing much sooner than anyone else does, because banks know people's routines. You know, if someone comes in and religiously withdraws $100 a week for 10 years, and then all of a sudden they're coming in, it's 500, and then it becomes 1,000, and then it becomes this much, and the bank says, hey, what's going on? And the person really doesn't have a good reason for it, that can be a sign. And if you're close enough to someone to catch that, that's a sign. Also, changes in financial matters, so deeds to homes, powers of attorney, wills, estate planning. If all of a sudden there's a lot of changes and movement without a whole lot of explanation, that can be a sign. Confusion about finances and financial documents. I cannot tell you how many cases have come through my desk where someone has signed something and they weren't really fully aware of what the repercussions of that signature would be. One in particular comes to mind. A senior woman living out in Ware was recovering from a surgical procedure, and she was at home, and her three adult children approached her and said, we want to help you out financially, so if you sign this document, it will let us help you out, is really the gist of what they told her. So she signed this document, and what it ended up being was a quitclaim deed, and she ended up signing over the family's vacation home to these three children. Now, she planned on selling that home and using that money to live out her retirement. So, and that she no longer had that. So, it's a very sad scenario, and no one likes to think their family members would ever do something like that. Not to say that any of your family members would, but that's just what we're seeing in the office. And once that ink dries, it's very, very hard to sort of make because if you sign a financial document, you as the signer, if you have not been deemed incompetent by a court, you have a financial responsibility to understand what that means before you sign it. So, don't take someone's word for it. You read documents yourself, you understand it. If you don't understand it, ask questions, take it to your bank. Banks are very, very helpful with this sort of thing. Say, I don't know what this is, help me understand. I do that all the time because I am not a banker. And I do not understand how banks work. But that's always, it's a good thing to do. Other big ones. And a big thing too, abrupt changes in behaviors or routines. If you have a friend or family member who just doesn't seem right all of a sudden, and they may, in these other factors come in, maybe their finances aren't where they should be, or maybe a family member has gotten very, very close to the senior and there's really no explanation why. That's always a good, or if a senior has told you that they're helping somebody out financially, that should be that should be a reason to sort of, you know, maybe keep tabs on that situation and figure out what may be going on. So some helpful tips. I say this again and again, and I know it can be really beneficial, but I honestly, no one should ever be using your debit card or your credit card except you. And I say that, so debit cards are linked to your checking account. When a debit card is issued, the bank gives you a PIN number. And that's the bank saying, all right, we're going to protect your money. So this is the code that someone who's using your card has to use to get your money. I always say, if you give that out, while we can still prosecute that if you don't authorize the use, a bank may say, hey, you gave that number out. And if someone uses your card, the bank may be not willing to reimburse you, because that's the bank's way of protecting your money, and you should keep that completely confidential to just yourself. Maybe if you have a spouse on the account too, I mean, that's maybe. But I always say keep that debit card or that debit number private to yourself. If you need someone to do grocery shopping for you, pick up the dry cleaning, it's always good to lend cash. And always ask for receipts. You always want a paper trail of where your money is going. Along those lines, you always want to read your bank statements. I know the bank can be kind of annoying. They send you one every month, and all of a sudden you have this stack of bank records you're not sure what to do with. Always read those carefully. Make sure there's nothing funky on it. Make sure that you authorized every charge on your account. And also going along with that, if you have a lot of financial documents sitting around that you don't need, I always recommend you shred those. Actually, our triad group will be having a shredding event in a couple of weeks, November 2nd at Hadley, the Hadley Home Depot from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. You can bring as much stuff as you want and we'll shred it for free. And that's a good way to protect your personal information. So bank statements, medical bills, anything with personal information that you don't need, you want to get rid of it. And I always say it's so important to stay socially active and educated about what's going on. And you folks are so lucky. You have a wonderful Council on Aging that is doing so much for the seniors in this community. And like I said, I'm very glad you're here and taking advantage of one of these programs, because staying up, keeping up with mentally, physically, it helps. It does a world of good for everybody to just stay socially active. And also, if you do decide to have someone help you out with finances or do errands for you, I always recommend that you document that in writing. So you have that somewhere so that if something does go wrong and for some reason that makes it to our office, we have a good baseline. So always document financial arrangements. And so as far as reporting goes, so if you do leave here in a couple days from now, you think there might be a fishy situation that you want to report, Massachusetts has a elder abuse hotline. So it's the same number in all of Massachusetts. Actually, I have little brochures here. I would take one on your way out if you're interested. So it has a nice little hotline, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And what they do, so reporters, the identity of the reporter is always anonymous. So no one's going to tell the senior who made this report. And they do that on purpose to encourage reporting. So should you have to report on a sister or a cousin or another family member or a very close friend, that person will never find out unless you choose to tell them you made that report. So what they do with those reports is they all go to Boston, 2A, because everything goes to Boston. And then what they will do is they will forward that report to the local protective service agency. In this case, it would be Highland Valley. They have a protective service section or unit. Highland Valley would then do a civil investigation. They would go out, talk to the senior, try to figure out what may be going on, try to find out if some services through Highland Valley would help them alleviate sort of the situation. And if they do find that abuse has occurred, they will then forward the report to us. So when you make a report of elder abuse, the police aren't coming to knock on the door. They're not, disrupting anybody's lives. They take a very, at least intrusive approach to remedy the situation. So, and they do that on purpose, to make things as civil as possible. And once the report comes to us, if we find that there may be something criminal happening here, then we may or may not forward it to a local police department for follow-up. So it's a very strategic, very structured way of making these reports. And I always say if there's even just a tiny inclination that something may be going on, it's always good to report. That way you can make sure whatever may be going on isn't going on. I think that's it. That's all I got. Alright, now we're going to get into the fun stuff, the scams and fraud that I know you all know very much too well.
Well, first of all, what I'm going to do is just introduce myself. My name is Anita Wilson. I work in the Consumer Protection Unit at the District Attorney's Office, and we're the only folks that don't go to court. So I'm not an attorney, but I am a consumer advocate, and we work with the Massachusetts Attorney General's Office to help consumers who have a complaint with the business. So say you hire someone to put a new roof on your home, and you pay them a down payment, and they come one day and they do some work, and then they never come back to finish it up. You can call our office and we'll help you file a complaint, and then we can try to work between you and the business to try to get the problem resolved. So we handle situations with home improvement, we handle situation with cars and purchasing a car dealer, retail, online shopping, so a lot of different areas. So if you have a problem with a business, you can call up our office and we can kind of send you in the right direction and try to get you some help. We also do a lot of education and outreach, because before you make a big decision like putting a new roof on your house, there are some things legally that you can do to protect yourself. So we can give you information from the state about what a good contract looks like, or what kind of certification somebody needs to do some work on your home. So we have a lot of that information as well. We also try to help prevent things like scams and exploitation from happening to you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about scams, the popular scams, how they work, what kind of tricks they use, because really they're good at what they do. They're really good actors, but they're really not smarter than any of us here in this room. So we're going to give you some tips on recognizing the tricks that they use to try to convince you to give them money or personal information. So let me just get my presentation up. But I can tell you that the first thing is we generally see scams come in through the phone. Those are the most popular, that's the most popular method that scammers use to try to get in touch with you, is over the phone. Then, second, on the computer. Thirdly, through the U.S. mail. It's kind of changed a little as technology has changed, because before it was a lot of mail. And a lot of ways they were trying to trick you through the mail, but now it's through the phone. And I'm sure we've all gotten one of those calls, right? From someone you don't know, a number you don't know. They leave a message on the answer machine or your voicemail, or you pick it up and you hear one of those robo voices. Now they're getting even trickier. They're generating sounds that sound like I'm talking to you. So they'll say something like, "Hello, how are you today?" And then they'll pause and wait for you to answer. "Listen, I've got some important information for you. Do you have time to talk to me?" And then they'll pause again. So it makes it sound like a real person is on the other end of the line. And it's just not. So we're going to start with some of the warning signs of a scam. They use your emotions. So one of the tricks they use is urgency. They try to get you to act quickly. They don't want you to have time to think and be logical. So they want to hurry you. And they might even have a hurried tone in their voice. They might use threats. I don't know about you, but I got the one from the Social Security Administration that my personal information had been compromised, and if I didn't tell them or I didn't talk to them, they were going to send the police. That's one of the common tactics they use. They also want secrecy. So they don't want you to tell anyone. It's just too good to be true, or you need to keep it a secret, or you might want to keep this private. And another thing they use is they want money that they can get to easily. So they don't want you to write them a check. They don't want you to sometimes give you their bank information. They want you to wire them money, because that's quick and easy. You can do it at a lot of different stores. They want you to buy prepaid cards, like a Home Depot gift card or something like that. Or they're even wanting you to send cash. So take money out of the bank and send it to them. The reasons they want these payments: quick, easy, a lot of times untraceable. So they don't want you to know who's actually getting the money. So those are some of the tricks to know. So some red flags: stop if you hear or you feel any of those emotions. The most popular scams right now are government imposter scams. So the Social Security Administration, that's a big one. Last year it was the IRS calling. You didn't pay your taxes. You've got to pay now or we're going to send the authorities after you. Also, local sheriff's departments or local police departments. For a while, my office was getting a string of calls from people who were being contacted by the sheriff's department. We all know it's not the sheriff's department. But they were being told that they skipped their jury duty. So they had to go to meet somebody from the sheriff's department and pay them money because they skipped jury duty. Or buy gift cards and tell them what the gift card numbers were. So they use authority figures to try to scare you into paying them money or sending them money or giving them personal information. So that's another trick that they use. So a lot of times those are calls that come in over the phone. Another government imposter is sometimes we've heard of these mailings going around, emails, calls even, saying that the government is giving out grants because you've been paid all your bills, you've been a good citizen, you're on maybe on Social Security, maybe limited income. You've been a good citizen. We're going to send you a grant. Free money. Don't believe it. No, the government's not giving out free money. We all know how difficult it is even to get a cost of living increase. They're not giving out free money, but it's a trick that they're using, trying to get your personal information from you. So I'm going to try to play an example of a robocall. And I'm not sure if you're going to be able to hear it very well, but let's listen and see if I can get it to play and if we can hear it. This is a robocall from the Social Security Administration. And it's just, we're going to listen to the call and then we're going to try to figure out what tricks did they use to try to fool us.
Enforcement agencies to suspend your Social Security number on an immediate basis, as we have received suspicious trails of information in your name. The moment you receive this message, I need you to get back to me on my department division toll-free number, that is 1-888-952-5554. I repeat, 1-888-952-5554. Verify the last 4 digits of your Social Security number when you call to better assist you with this issue. Now, if I don't hear a call from you, we will have to issue an arrest warrant under your name and get you arrested. So get it back to me as soon as possible. Thank you.
So it sounds kind of silly to all of us, right? But what tricks were they trying to use to get you to give them your personal information or to even call them back? What trick did they use?
Fear.
The fear, right? They were threatening you. If you don't call us back, we're gonna get you arrested. So they're using fear. They're also trying to hurry you, like, you gotta act now, you've gotta do this now, or we're gonna send those people after you. Also, if your Social Security number was compromised, why do they need you to confirm your last 4 digits of your Social Security number? So they're not, they're doing a lot of things, but they're trying to get that personal information from you. Because once they have your social security number, if they have your name and your date of birth, that's pretty much all they need to open credit in your name, and you know, you're on the hook and they get the free money. So the call sounds silly, but to someone who might not be paying attention or who's distracted doing something else, they might think, hey, I need to call these people back. So those are some of the tactics that they use for this Social Security call. And obviously, we all know we need to protect our Social Security number because it's one of those little bits of personal information that can be used to open credit in your name. So that's an example of that Social Security robot call. So I get a lot of calls in my office from people who are saying, I got a call from Social Security, is this real or not? And we talk it through and we explain it's not real. But if you get a call, you can always call our office or even your local police department, the non-emergency line, and just kind of confirm something with them before you act. Or talk to a friend.
But they give a number for you to call back. So once we understand that that number is attached to fraud, can't that number be taken away or blocked or something?
See, the problem with phone numbers is the technology they have, they're so smart. And they hire these smart computer people to come up with technology where they can use a computer and they can make the number look like it's coming from anywhere. I don't know if anyone else has gotten this problem, but some people even get phone calls from their own home phone number or their own cell phone number. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah. So they do this. They're able to manipulate the technology in their favor to change around the things. So you could be getting a call from India, but they can use the computer and make it look like it's coming from Washington, D.C. and the Social Security Administration or the IRS. So anyone can do that, and there are even apps out there which are things that consumers can get their hands on that allow them to change technology like that.
But in the meantime, he said there, call 1-888 whatever.
Yeah.
So once it's like we have a report that people are being asked to call this number and we know it's fraud. Can't you trace who has that number? And
it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And they'll give you different numbers because they can change the number that they're, they can use the technology to manipulate it any way they can. And you can get a call from the same guy, but it might be a different number that they're giving you.
Well, that's the other thing is like my wife and I, we block these numbers.
Right.
But then we get the same phone call.
You're going to get the same
It's from
phone call.
another number, but it's the same voice, same recording.
It's the same thing. So they just use the benefits of computer technology. Computers are great. They can do a lot of great things, but they can use that against us.
But
so
did they just have something out with IRS the last few months where IRS says, don't listen to them because we don't call you?
Right. So government agencies, that's their line. They are not going to call you. They're going to send you stuff through the mail, because it's an easier way to reach you. It's the most efficient way to reach you is through the mail. And then if you're having a problem with the IRS and you don't pay your bills, they can, if they decide eventually to take you to court, they can say, hey, we sent her 10 notices. She didn't pay her bills, so we're taking you to court. So it's their way of doing it. So yeah, the government is never going to call you unless you call them first. Say you have a problem with Medicare and you need them to resolve it, and you ask them to call you back. Yes, they're going to call you back, but generally they're not going to call you out of the blue if you have any problem. So that's an important point to bring up, that the government will not call you.
Yeah.
Yep. There are a couple other popular scams that we hear a lot of reports about. One is called the grandparent scam. So they call up someone out of the blue and pretend to be your grandchild who got themselves arrested or got into an accident. There were drugs in the car. You need to send money now to bail them out or to pay for this accident. And they'll say, Grandma, you cannot tell my parents about this. They're going to kill me if they hear that I got in trouble. So what are they using? They're using secrecy. They're using threats that the kid is going to be thrown into jail and you're not going to be able to get him out. They're also using urgency, because I wouldn't want my grandchild to sit in jail when that time comes, probably. but it might teach them a lesson. So, but they're trying to use that urgency. They're trying to convince you. And a lot of times those calls come in the middle of the night when you're asleep. And you might groggily pick up the phone and kind of not really know what's going on. That's the way they fool you. And they have such good actors and actresses. I saw an interview with a woman who was in her early 60s. And she said, I do not know why I fell for this scam. She said, but when I was listening to this voice on the phone and I was convinced it was my grandson, I was just blinded by emotion. So they get you all wrapped up in this emotional trauma and drama, and they convince you of something that's not realistic. So with the grandparent scam, if somebody does call you pretending to be a family member, verify the information. Call the parents. Call their cell phone. Call your local police department. They're happy to help you. You know, if you feel like a family member is in trouble, they'll help you out. Okay, so it's just the tricks they use. So you have to just be really defensive when you're picking up the phone. You have to be suspicious.
What concerns me is that we get so many of these that it's wearing down it's kind of wearing you down, so you almost like might respond just to get rid of them, you know what I mean?
Right. And I totally understand that feeling. They are persistent. And sometimes the same people will call you, and sometimes if you don't initially fall for this kind of scam or the tech support scam where they say there's a problem with your computer, they'll call you again. Or they'll sell your name to someone else who will call you with a different story trying to convince you. And it's hard, especially when we were brought up in a generation that you're supposed to respect each other, you're supposed to be polite, you're supposed to respond to someone who speaks to you. It's hard to keep that defense up, and I understand that. I guess the best thing we can try to do is try to screen calls, let them go to the machine. If you have a cell phone, if you get a lot of these calls on your cell phone, hit do not disturb. So a lot of smartphones have a do not disturb button, and you can set it so that you only get the phone only rings when one of the people on your contact list, so generally your friends, family, I have my doctor's office in there, the veterinarian, I have those names plugged into my phone. But it's a good way to, if you're tempted to pick up the phone, or if you want to kind of screen your calls, it's another technique to use, so you're not just getting bombarded all the time with phone calls. The phone calls that you need are coming in. It's a trick to use. Some phone companies have technology that will help you block the calls, or something might come up on your caller ID saying scam call or suspected scam. You can contact your phone company to try to figure out if they can help you with that technology. And I know that they are trying to work with the federal government to try to block these calls from coming in. They're trying to work on technology too. It's just the scammers are, you know, they're hiring their experts, the phone companies are hiring their experts. They're trying to kind of keep up with it all. But, you know, if you have to, maybe just turn off the ringer for a while if you're starting to feel like overwhelmed. And
I don't answer the phone.
Right.
Unless it's somebody's number that I put in there.
Yeah, it is. And that's a technique that they use. They try to wear you down. It's really sad. It's disturbing that they're trying to do that. Another one that we had going around for a while was Publishers Clearinghouse scam. How do you know if you've won the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes?
They come to your door with a big, huge check.
Right, and they have the big check, the balloons, the flowers, the prize patrol will come to your house.
Yeah. You actually have to have applied for
And you
that.
actually have to enter it. I have a great graphic, and I can show it to you guys later, but we had a consumer come in who had gotten this huge packet, and they tried to convince him that he won grand prize, and I think it was like Mega Millions or some kind of lottery. And they had items from the FTC, they had documents from a big bank, and a check on the document making it look like it was real. They had all these people signing off on it, and it looked really, really real. So don't believe anything you send in the mail or that you get in the mail, because they're probably going to ask you, they're going to send you a check, and then you're going to have to take out some fees, and then you have to send that money back to them. What do you think is going to happen once you cash that check and you send them back the money? Well, the check is going to bounce, and you're not going to know that, and you're also going to have sent them the money, so guess who's on the hook for that? You're on the hook. So you have to be, that's definitely a caution about those lotteries. But yes, with Publishers Clearinghouse, they're going to send the prize patrol to your door with everything, because they want the TV moment. They want to have your, oh my gosh, I won. And they want to have that on there. So, does anyone have a computer or a smartphone? Mm-hmm. Have you ever gotten a computer repair call? It's a call, yes, it's a robocall. So I'm going to play one of those too, so we can just listen to it. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's the one that we just listened to. Let me pull up the robocall about computer repair.
We encounter a serious issue coming out of your computer. It seems to be someone is trying to hijack your computer and try to steal your personal information. If it's not fixed right away, then your computer will become obsolete and all of your credential information may got compromised. If you are the one who is using Microsoft Windows in your computer, then please call 516-548-5015 or press 1 now to speak with security team now. Please ignore if we called you by mistake. Thanks.
All right, she sounds a lot nicer than that.
Please ignore this if we called you by mistake.
By mistake. So yeah, that kind of rang a bell for you, like, wait a minute, you said I had a problem with my computer, but then you might have called me by mistake.
Yeah.
It's not logical, but it could be something that could kind of scare you a little bit, especially if you're not, I'm not the computer expert. If something happens, I call one of my kids or my husband over, like, hey, help me with the computer. But it could be enough to scare you into doing it. And especially if you get a live call from someone who says, hey, I know there's a problem with your computer. I can help you with that. They're looking to either get money from you because they want to sell you a security program that you don't need. Mm-hmm. In that security program, there could also be viruses or malware that can mess up your computer and can also steal your personal information. Not good. Anyone calls you or emails you, or you get a pop-up screen on your computer that says you have a virus or something, don't believe it. If you're concerned your computer is infected or has a problem, first run your own security program that's part of the computer when you buy it, or if you're not comfortable, take it to an expert. Take it back to the store where you bought it and say, hey, I need some help. Can you help me with this? And they will help you walk through it. I know some communities also have people who come into the senior center who help people with computer issues. You could also talk to somebody like that. So that's pretty much our thing with the phone calls. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to plan your emotions. They're trying to scare you. They're trying to rush you. They're trying to threaten you. Don't believe it. Mm-hmm. Because those are the tricks that they use. We talked about some of the computer stuff. Just be really careful about where you're going on the computer, and if you're buying things on the computer, make sure you're going to a reputable website. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of complaints recently where people are going to websites and they're ordering things because they see an advertisement and it looks great and the price is right, but when there's a problem and they go to return the item, they're not able to do that, or they have to pay for the shipping expenses back to China. The products are coming to China, they have to return them to China. There's not a local company that's going to help them out. And their refund is like $3 and they paid $25 for something. So if you do choose to do some holiday shopping online, make sure you know what their return and refund policy is. 2, maybe it's a company that you're familiar with, that you're comfortable with, and just know where they're based. Because if you send something back to China, first, it's going to take a while because it's going to have to go through customs. And two, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So make sure you're just aware of that. If you get emails and somebody says, click on this link to, it's from your bank. Click on this link. There's a problem with your account. We need you to verify some information. And that's called phishing. They're like casting a line, and they're trying to get you, the fish, to bite onto the line and steal your personal information, maybe your password, maybe your ATM number, maybe your PIN. So just be really aware of what you're doing on the computer. And if there's a problem with your bank account, it is possible that they'll send you an email. I've gotten one from my bank. I didn't believe it because I'm really skeptical being in this business. So I flipped over my ATM card, I looked on the back of it, I called that number, you know, for my bank, my real bank, and yes, there was a problem. I did not call the number that was on the email, even though it was the right one. Just always go on, if you get a call, if you get an email or a call from any company that you do business with, always go back to your bank statement. Get the phone, use that phone number on your bank statement, your credit card statement, your utility bill, because that's where people get in trouble. They think they're calling the right place and they're not. It's people trying to trick you out of your personal information.
Credit cards too. I've gotten some that look like my legitimate credit card company, but you start examining it and there's misspellings and there's kind of weird English that doesn't go together right. And, and again, call the credit card company number that's on your
that's
card.
on your card. Yeah, that's so important, is to verify the information that they're giving you. Even if you have to go, even if you have to call someone, call our office. I have this big consumer guide that has all the numbers, the 800 numbers for the major businesses. We can get it to you. Or, you know, just look on the back of your cards, back of your statements. Know who you're calling and who you're communicating with. I've gotten one from a friend on my contact list, and her name is Mary Ann. Everybody calls her Mary Ann. The email said Mary and her last name. So that kind of made me suspicious anyway, because I know she's not going to call herself Mary. And she sent me this email, and it didn't have like, "Hi Anita, how are you?" like she would normally say. She's a friendly person. It just said, "Hey, I saw this link. You should check it out." And there was something to click on. Like, nope.
Get those every week.
Yep, spam, you know, put it in your fraud flag, whatever you do in your email. Just make sure you're not clicking on things that people are sending you, because they could have had their email accounts taken over by one of these viruses or malware or whatever.
Or Facebook too.
Yeah, oh yeah, Facebook, on the Facebook Messenger, that's a big one. I get, you know that your friend has been hacked because they're sending you these silly links or videos that they want you to watch. So you should always let them know too. Like I let my friend know, I said, "Hey, you know, I think your email has been hacked because I got this funny email and it looked like it was from you." So she went in, she checked it out, she changed her password and everything, and she was all set. A big thing with computer thing is online romance, and online, they have some dating websites. Or somebody might reach out to you on a Facebook and say, "Hey, you know, I think we went to high school together," and they want to connect with you or whatever. But then they start trying to build this relationship. And it can be very convincing. Also can be very cruel.
Well, you find that you get sometimes on Facebook as a friend's request. And you look at the person, you look at their picture, and you look at their name, and you don't know who the hell they are.
Yeah.
So when that happens, don't become their friends.
Right.
Just delete it.
Right. But even on some reputable dating websites, there are bad people who go on places like that, trying to trick people, trying to fool people out of their money. So even if it doesn't apply to you, but maybe one of your children or one of your family members, it's really a popular thing from people between 39 and about 70. Those tend to be the victims of these online dating things, and they honestly think they're forming this relationship with someone. They might talk to them on the phone, they might talk to them over the computer, and it's a long process, but really the attempt is to get money out of you. So if you know someone who has a friend or a boyfriend or, you know, a romantic interest that's not around, they've never met them, that's definitely something to be suspicious about. I'm just going to go do mail frauds really quickly. Most of the lotteries and sweepstakes scams do come through the mail. So if you get one of those, I'm sorry to say you didn't win the lottery. You have to play the lottery, right? You have to go there. And anything that tells you it's a foreign lottery and you've won.
Well, the Irish and the Nigerian one.
Right. Well, guess what? Those are against the law in the United States anyway, so it's kind of illegal even if you did play it and you won it. So that's something to look out. And anytime someone offers to send you a check through the mail, they have what's called an overpayment scam. So they'll pay you for something, say it's a prize winning, but you have to mail back money for taxes. Sometimes it happens on online buying sites like Craigslist and eBay and stuff like that. They'll buy something from you, but they'll send you too much money. So they want you to cash the check and send them the money back. That's a big red flag. So if you get a check in the mail, banks are really good at trying to determine what check is real and what check isn't, but some of these checks are so real looking, and they might even be drawn on an account, but the account is closed after you cash it. So it's really hard for them to tell for several days, even weeks, whether this is a fraudulent check. Just be really wary of anyone who wants to send you a check like that.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Like I've had the same financial advisor all my lifetime. She's my financial advisor. But I get these invitations in the mail, beautiful cards. We're having a dinner at the Delaney house. Wouldn't you like to come and listen to our wine? They name who they are. Or there's a lot on television. Oh, hi, my name is Gary, and I can tell you how to make your Social Security check go farther. You know, come to my seminar and I'll show you this. And I have to wonder, wait a minute, how does this even get on the television? It shouldn't be on the, you know, between the evening news sometimes.
Yeah, you know, I can't really speak about specific companies, but always beware if they're giving you something, it's a sales pitch a lot of times, and I would never sign up for something that night, but that's really what they want you to do, is they want you to sign up for it, and that's how a lot of people end up buying timeshares, because they'll go to a presentation and they'll sign up for it. So I would just be really aware that if they're inviting you to an event, it's going to be a sales pitch. Honestly, before I make a decision, I'm going to go home and think about it. I don't want to sign up that night because there's a lot of pressure, and I want to do my research. There's information on the state's website, mass.gov, about, you know, licensure for these individuals. You can go and see reviews, because a lot of times if somebody's had a negative experience with a business or a company, if you put in that company's name and you put scam or you put review, you might find some bad things out about them. So I would just always be aware that if you're getting an invitation that you didn't, an unsolicited thing, it's probably going to be a sales pitch, and I would be very wary about signing up for something right then. I like to just sit down, have a piece of paper, have all the details, documenting everything, sit down by myself or with a partner or with a friend who might be able to look at it for you, and just go over all the information first.
It seems like there's more of it on the television media now.
It's
prime times, news in the evening, you know, around those times.
Well, I think a lot of times what you're talking about, those aren't necessarily scams as they are these businesses that are looking to, they're going to give you this nice presentation and they're going to kind of suck you in. So they may not be committing fraud, but it's still not a good idea.
That's right.
Yeah, you just definitely want to make sure that you're well educated before you enter into any kind of decision like that. And yeah, I mean, they might be registered, they might be licensed, they might be very, you know, reputable businesses, good businesses. But it's always good just to go over everything. Just don't sign up for something right away. Because in Massachusetts, there are very limited circumstances where after you sign a contract, that you have a cooling off period where you can cancel that contract. So if you do buy something in certain circumstances, if there is a 3-day cooling off period, they need to give you that paperwork that night so that you can change your mind, and they need to put on that paperwork when that 3-day cooling off period expires. So say a timeshare or something like that, they should give you, you go to a presentation outside of your home at a hotel or something. Not at the business, because you're not going to have that right if you do it at the business. But if you're at a trade show or, you know, home show or something like that, if you sign a contract for something, they need to give you a paper, you know, with your 3-day right to cancel and exactly when that 3-day right to cancel expires. So, but I just think it's always good to do your research first before you sign the dotted line. Because if you buy a car, you sign a bill of sale, you signed the bill of sale. That's an agreement. It's a contract that you made, and you may or may not be able to get out of that contract if you change your mind.
Even with a 3-day?
Well, you only have the 3-day in certain circumstances. So if you sign up for something generally at your home, if somebody comes to your home and you do have that, or if you buy something at like outside of the businesses, not at the car dealership, but if it was at like a car show somewhere, say at the Biggie or something, you may have that 3-day, but it's very limited circumstances in Massachusetts. So before you sign a contract, know that you might not have a right to cancel. And that's where you could call my office and we could try to help you, but you know, you may or may not be successful depending on the business.
I just got in the mail yesterday this 3x12 invitation to Alina's restaurant for a gourmet dinner to sit down and listen to somebody talk about retirement and such. So it's torn and in recycling right now. It's garbage.
Yeah, I mean,
Garbage.
you know, if you are interested, you could always go and listen,
Sure.
but just know that it's going to be a heavy sales.
Yep.
Yeah, don't sign
Push it,
anything.
yeah, you're going to be, you're definitely, they're going to want to get something from that investment of buying you dinner.
Oh yeah,
They're hoping to make you a client.
yeah, and I'm sure
I'm
that will start
surprised
lots of
at
phone calls.
Alina's to allow that even. You know, because Alina's is a pretty nice restaurant.
Yeah, but if they want some more money, sure, they'll allow somebody to have some sort of presentation
Yeah,
there.
I
It
suppose.
all comes down to money.
Yeah.
If they've got the money to pay
So
for
does
the
anyone
dinners
have
for
any
everybody.
questions about the phone scams or what you can do about the phone scams? I'll just wrap up by saying
I just wanted to say that there is a website where you can register your phone number.
that's the
that-
do
no,
not call registry.
That's the do not call
Right.
registry.
Does it work?
So the do not call
It does for
registry-
most, I think. There's some that sort of sneak in, but they're not as many as
So
they
the
were
do
before.
not call registry was designed to stop telemarketing calls from
Yeah.
legitimate companies like your credit card company or, you know, somebody trying to sell you something. And reputable businesses, if you're on the do not call list and you don't do business with them, if they're just cold calling people, if you're on the do not call list, they won't call you. It's the calls that you get,
The other ones.
yeah, then those are the ones that you really have to be suspicious about, because if you're on the do not call list, reputable marketers who buy these lists won't call you. Okay, so it's not going to protect you to be on the do not call list. It might cut down some calls.
Yeah.
But the scammers are criminals trying to separate you from your money or your personal information, so they're not going to follow the do not call list. So unfortunately, do not call is not going to protect you. That's why the phone companies and service providers, internet providers, they're trying to work on technology to try to block some of this stuff from coming down to you. But, you know, we may have to wait. So your best weapon in dealing with scams and phone scams is just hang up. You don't want to call them, or you don't want to call them back. You don't want to talk to them. You don't want to press any number to get off their list, because that tells them there's a live human being who just pressed the phone. Press this number. So you want to pretend like they're not going to be able to talk to you. Anybody, any human being, if they call your house, just quietly hang up. I know you really want to yell at them and tell them, I know who you are, I know what you're trying to do, don't call me again, but then they know there's a human being behind that phone who they're going to be able to try to fool.
Don't they know that anyway if they're...
They do, or you could be a fax machine. Some people still do have fax machines. So you could be a fax machine that's just not picking up, but you just want them to know you're not going to be their captive audience. They cannot fool you. They can't sell your name and your phone number to somebody else who's going to try to fool you. So just hang up.
And have caller ID.
And use your caller ID, but be suspicious of your caller ID as well. And if you're not expecting a call from someone, if they really need to get in touch with you, they'll leave you a message. Yeah.
So have there been any prosecutions of these people at all?
If you look on the Federal Trade Commission's website, they have they've prosecuted, they fine companies, and sometimes they help victims recover money that they was lost. So with Western Union, there were a lot of money wiring schemes, and the Federal Trade Commission went after Western Union, and there was a big settlement that they came up with. So some people who had lost money through money wiring during certain periods of time last year were able to file claims with Western Union, and they did receive some compensation. So they're trying to do that. The FBI tries to do it, but these things, they're so common. There's so many different numbers, so many different call centers. When they're overseas, it's really hard for prosecutors and police in our area to get people who are overseas. So they are trying. It's just they're so tricky, and the technology works in their benefit. So. But yeah, the best thing to do is just the prevention, spread the word, and share it with younger people too about being really cautious about what they're doing on the computer. Because when younger people get in trouble and get scammed, it's generally over the computer, or they get ripped off with online shopping, fake job offers, fake apartment offers, things like that. So it's not just elders, it's not us Gen Xers that are just getting scammed. Younger people are losing money too to fraudulent activity.
So it's always good to report. So if you have a phone number or you have a scam that kind of comes through and you do get a viable phone number in a scenario, there's a way to report that to the FTC. And we always say it's worth it in everybody's best interest to report it. It may not help you in your particular situation, but the more reports that come in about a certain type of scam, the more attention it's going to get by the federal government. Like Anita said, our local prosecutors, our local police department are not equipped to deal with these sort of national scams, because typically, you know, these crimes are certainly crossing state lines. They're crossing national lines as well. And typically, you know, our little Hadley Police Department is just not equipped. We don't have the technology to track these people down. They're very good at what they do. So it's really a federal issue. So people at a local level need to make waves with their lawmakers, with reporting, to keep this sort of alive, so to speak. Because it really does need to be addressed federally. And I mean, you know, the federal statutes, some of them do address this sort of issue and sort of money wiring and wire fraud, and I mean, us at the local level, our prosecuting bodies, I mean, we're dealing with state statutes that were written when, you know, larceny meant someone running up to you and stealing your purse, you know, so I don't think anything in the Mass state legislature specifically addresses sort of phone scams, because it really is a federal issue. So we're at, you know, it's a federal issue that is affecting everybody locally, and we're sort of, we don't know how to prosecute it. We don't know how to get it. We don't, the police departments don't have, are ill-equipped to catch these people. So it's a federal issue, and to do that, we got to make waves. We got to keep it in our lawmakers, the back of their minds. We gotta keep it alive. So I always recommend to keep reporting.
And just pass on the word. Like if you get a funny call from someone, Talk to your friends about it. You're not going to believe who called and who they said they were, because you might help somebody else who gets one of these calls and who may not really think twice about it and might fall for a scam.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think that's all I got.
Yeah.
Right. Any other questions? Comments?
I have a question
Concerns?
concerning your caseload.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to prosecute these individuals?
The
Elder abuse and such?
It depends on the case. I'd say our unit, I think last year, had just over 200 cases that we reviewed.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say maybe a little less than half went through district court and superior court.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about a lot of our cases is, which is why we have a unit dedicated specifically to these cases, is a big issue with us is competency. Sometimes our victims are not competent to stand trial, which is a big barrier. It's a big, big barrier. So we're sort of specially trained to handle cases in which we may not have a victim able to testify. And that's the thing. When we get a lot of these financial exploitation cases by a family member, my office will reach out directly to the victim and, I'll say who I am and we got this report. Do you want to talk to us? Can you help us out? Do you want to go forward? And a lot of times that answer is no. And if we don't have a victim who's willing to testify to say this happened to me, a lot of times that's a big barrier to prosecution.
Oh, that's with family or something.
Yeah, we get that. We get that a lot.
I can see that.
Family members, and it's unfortunate because these people who are committing these crimes know that. They know that their family member would never go to court and testify against them. And we have sort of, and we can know deep down in our guts that we know something is going on. But the problem is we as a prosecuting body have a duty to only bring forward cases that we think we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a very high burden, but if we bring forward cases that we don't think we can prove just to sort of prove a point, that's just a waste of everybody's time. And so it gives false hope to people who have stakes in the case, and it's very frustrating. It is. But we do have a fair share of very successful prosecutions. So not as many as I would like, but it's sort of the nature of these types of cases. So good. All right. I think we did good without our laptop.